For the third video on the Rotten Blood series, I'm going to cover Jaded Roots, the spawn possibly considered the easiest of Rotten Blood. This video includes an easy lab, ideal for charming or low-ish levels, another lab for when you get charms, or a 5-man without charms, and lastly the higher level lab but adjusted for less difficulty. We hunted this spawn long enough to unlock Bestiary and then left shortly after, since at least for our level range the experience wasn't great. There was still some room for improvements, but regardless, it's doable. I'm not claiming that this is the best way to go about it, it's what me and my team did ourselves. So with that said, let's start off with the general information. The main mechanic of the spawn is that each creature has a rare chance of spawning a decaying totem when they die. This totem does 4 attacks, each expanding on size and hitting for 25% of the max HP of the person hit. This damage comes in the form of Death Element, so stone skin amulets are very useful against them. As a knight, you more or less have a chance of getting hit twice per totem. This could change depending on how close it spawns, but it's a good average. And knowing the pattern does allow you to put an SSA if needed, but most of the times you can take the damage and be fine. Sometimes you're able to move in or out of the AoE, and that works too. It's a very variable gimmick to watch out for. Everyone else tends to be more able to either move away or mana shield. What you truly need to be careful with is when they respawn more than one. 2 are uncommon but at least a few times a hunt, and 3 at the same time is very rare, but it could happen. When those happen is when you absolutely need to be using SSAs, even if you don't time it perfectly. Be as defensive as you can for that, and it's overall a good idea to be calling out when the totems spawn, in case somebody doesn't notice them. Defensively, the main source of damage is physical, and then earth for the EK, and this is very similar to Mage's damage intake. Part of the reason this is one of the easier spawns of Rotten Blood is that the damage done is more focused on the EK compared to the other spawns. Here the AoE is less often and not as dangerous. What you watch out for as a mage are Sopping Corpus because of their fire twin bursts, and the beetles for their waves which are physical damage. So both of these you have less protection against and are your real danger. Regardless, the main element protection should go towards Earth. Another reason this spawn is slightly easier is that creatures don't retarget as much as the other spawns. On this one they stay on the first person they see for longer. Now offensively, you want to go with energy for Sorcerer and EK, or optionally Ice for Druids and EK. It depends on the weapons available for the night. For example, if I were a club user, I will use a Soul Crusher with a shield. As a sword user, ideally a Sanguine Razor, and axe will be Soul Eater, which does make it a little bit more dangerous since you lose out on shield protections, but it's still preferred. If you want to be safer, then sure, go with a shield and a Naga sword or axe, or the most rare weapons like the Ember Axe and Saber. In terms of charms, it will look like this, and I personally wasn't using dodge back then, but after introducing it into my Darklight hunts, I have become a fan of it again, so I do recommend it. For wheels, sorcerers should build around the energy wave, upgrade it, and if possible have the beams upgrades too. Optionally UE buffs. As for the druid, you want to improve runic mastery and twin burst, optionally some heal perks. For paladins, these creatures are weak to holy, so upgrading your mass sand and grenade are the way to go, since they are also resistant to physical, which makes this not a paladin friendly spawn. And for EK, probably upgrades on exotic mass and some in executioner troll, since ideally you want to be moving before the creatures die. Optionally, going more defensively with HP stats and more on Gift of Life is pretty good too. For this one, I will go with level 900s to 1.1k recommendation. This lab has 8 pools and the first one is by the entrance, directly in front of the stairs. This one you're coming from the left, so EK drags around 3 creatures and then by the time you reach the stairs, you end up with 8 or so. Sometimes it might miss some, but that's fine. Next up, go east. For this one, we ended up making the paladin lure creatures from the south, so he will go there first and then come up through that path. This is necessary since the pool by itself often didn't have 8 creatures. The alternative is combining the 2 pools into one, but that's a lot more dangerous and not recommended without charms, so I will keep it this way instead. Then keep moving east. This time stopping near these stairs. Again, you will have an 8 box. If you want to make it bigger, the paladin could lure from the right a few more, but this is after charms if you still hunting this lab. After this, go downstairs. For this one, there is going to be creatures north of the stairs that you want to grab aggro of, and then walk south by hugging the left wall. This way you are more likely to keep aggro of the creatures while moving, and if done right, then you will have the A-box a little bit to the south. For the next one, continue south and this time pick a bit to the southeast to lure one or two and then move left to stop around this spot. That will bring another one from the left by itself and this usually completes the hitbox. The next pull is to the left, and it takes a bit to get there, with 3 to 4 creatures on the way that you want to keep aggro off, and that means walking slowly. This is for the sake of making the hunt easier for the mages. If you run from pool to pool and leave the RP to lure the creatures, this might increase the XP or lower it. It's hard to say, since it still depends on how messy it gets. Also for this pool, if you don't have an A box, it's because one walks to the left and that one I do have the RP lured if it happens. The next pool is upstairs, and this one is the most dangerous, partly because mages are forced to a limited space, and often a creature retargeting becomes a mess. If anyone moves north, it results in more creatures coming, so you really want to drop it on the paladin so that he tries to put it on the EK, or tank the extra damage until the creatures start to die. The alternative is to set up further north, but that is guaranteed to have overlure, and is definitely not recommended for this low range or without charms. Next up is an adaptation my team wasn't fond of, but it works. EK pick right and wait until some of the creatures come, which this route only has one space to walk through, so it takes some seconds. Once they are coming, that's when I start moving to the north, and this allows for another pull to make up north. Otherwise, the alternative is a massive pull instead of the two, or do the first one and then run to the next, while luring the creatures on the way. But the problem with that is another route that blocks the path, so not only players can be slowed by the creatures, for that reason I included this pull. But with that the lap is completed, and with this our experience was around the 10kk raw, no charms with an average team of 1200, also no soul cores or bonus XP from Backrog or Taint. For the record, I didn't have a Sanguine Razor, that's why I went with the Shredder. A Razor will boost my XP, and another thing that will improve it is simply moving faster between the pulls, which I was going slower for the sake of a safer hunt. But ironically, another thing to make it safer will be using grill necklaces and a shield. Regardless, I think that around the 9 to 10kk is accurate pre-charms. Now moving on, the lap I would recommend to do when you get charms or a little bit higher level average, like in the 1200s, start by going east from the stairs, doing the previous lap pulls, and then when you reach this spot is the start of the lap. Then follow the path southeast. Depending on the levels of your team, you will want to be moving before creatures die and kill them on the way or have the RP bring them. Keep in mind that for this hunt we were 5-manning, which we did for most of our time in here. Not that it's necessary, we came here for charms rather than higher experience. The next pull is going south. Slowly lure the creatures and stop by the middle of this path. Then after that, move a bit to the southwest and stand around the middle of the goo. Then go left and do a small peek into the room, but stand south of this mushroom. After that comes a bit of a bad pull. I will peek into the main room and then lure the creatures back inside. This could result in some getting trapped and retargeting others, but overall it's a necessary pull, otherwise sending it into the big room is going to be very dangerous. This way we are breaking it into 2 pulls, since we go in and do one inside, and that's much more manageable. Then go northeast and set up around the middle of the room. With this we will make it back to the first pull, and with that the lap is completed. With this team, no charms, soul cores or final taint on me, we were doing a bit over the 10kk raw XP, somewhere around the 11s if we had been 4-manning. And once we had charms, we move on to a bigger lap. Not that it was necessary to be honest, just trying it to compare. For this one, the northeast part is the same as before, but once we got to the 4th pull, instead of going into the middle, we kept moving south. The first pull is by the corner and similar to the big room in the middle. This one has a lot of creatures that we will break down into 2 pulls. First near the entrance, and then after that I will pick northwest, bring the creatures out of there and then set up at the south. And despite breaking this pull in 2, we still had over 10 creatures on each. Hence why at the beginning of the video I described this as the higher level lap. It's basically the same but with less pulls in between, hence making each pull have a lot more creatures. Regardless, for us, in the level 1200 range or so, I recommend to still break it down. The next pull was south of this entrance, then for the next one, I will go north to bring the creatures out, and set up by the middle of the path. Then continue to the left to reach the other corner of the cave. This one again we will split in 2. One pull by the entrance with the creatures lured on the way, and then another one by the northwest. After that, follow the path and be careful with this one. We opted to not break it into 2. Which means it's more dangerous with overlure. For the record, you can't do a full lap around the cave, as there won't be a path to the north after this pull, so instead you have to go through the east towards the middle of the cave. We did one pull here before we reached the middle, and then go inside afterwards. This time we did go into the big room and did it in one pull. It can get dangerous, so avoid going east to lure even more. And with that, we will go northeast and get it back into the lap shown previously. On this lap, we were doing 11 to 12 kk raw, with charms but no soul cores or final 10. We will do a bit more if I was moving faster between pulls and letting them deal with the creatures on the way. And if we were 4 men, then maybe it could be somewhere around the 14kk raw. It's not better XP than the other Rotten Blood spawns, but it's decent with a bit more of profit. The one downside, I suppose, is that the boss of this spawn, Merchant, is probably the hardest of the access bosses and is not the most reliable to do daily. And also most definitely not with 4 people unless they are high levels. So keep that in mind if you decide to come to this spawn. With that said, that's all I got for this one. Consider subscribing if you found it helpful, and remember there is more Rotten Blood content coming soon. Thank you for watching, and until the next one.